Okay. Well, welcome. Um, I feel nervous. Wow, you like did all the
Well,
text for us, and then I'm like, oh, okay. This is like a real podcast. Um,
and
because
I'm a real person. Look,
you're a real person.
real
I love
person.
that. So yeah, welcome all the listeners to Resonant Remembering. This is a podcast where we talk about any and everything just to hopefully unlock a new thought that you haven't thought before. And so I have here with me a new friend. I'm sorry, I interrupted your water drinking. Hi, you're Cathy. That's all I know you by. Who are you? What do you do? What are
Who is this strange person?
Yeah.
So I am Cathy Brooks, and I am a lifelong communicator. I mean, I guess we're all communicators. Human beings are storytelling machines and all of that good stuff. But for me, language, actual words were really like my first music from my earliest recollection. There were two things that were really important to me literally from infancy. So from as even pre real cognition for me, language, words, and how it's used, and dogs.
Okay.
And those two things actually interplayed very closely with each other for a lot of my life. Um, I went, as we all kind of go through high school and into university education, and what are we going to do for a living? How are we going to make money? What skills are we going to develop? I went away from the dog bit of it and over to the communication side and worked for a number of years, first on the media side, and then I popped over the fence into the public relations side. And I did primarily, it was all in Silicon Valley. So I was in California right after getting my university degree at Northwestern at the journalism school there,
Okay.
and really was working around how do you communicate about technology to people who don't know technology. So kind of
Yeah.
bridging that gap, because in 1992, before there was a commercial internet, a consumer internet, before there was Microsoft Word, there was this evolutionary flow of technology that was starting to be consumer facing, and there wasn't a lot of language around explaining it in a way that made sense. And so that was really where I landed.
Cool. Yeah,
My
I find
superpower is, please go ahead.
oh, no, I find that even now, so I studied computer science for a moment in 2019, and I don't speak that language. So I understood. But it very much did feel like, holy cow, like I have to learn a whole new language to even start talking about like this other thing. Because like it just, yeah, you can't. It's like, oh well, yeah, I can't even remember things from coding school. It like jacked up my brain a little. I think I was like, whoa, that's really incompatible
Well,
language.
I'm sure there's a support group you can find somewhere who
For
can help you with that.
real. For real. But yeah, so okay,
Yeah,
cool.
well,
So
I mean,
you
I
like,
wasn't on the coding side. Like, to be clear, I wasn't on the
yeah,
coding side, the building of the technology. I was on the how do we explain what's just been made to people who are actually going to use it and why it's
right.
important to them. And that was really interesting to me. So, fast forward a bunch of years,
Oh,
and I make a kind of turn away from Silicon Valley, um, to kind of pull the ripcord, get out of the rat race, and to open a dog training facility in Las Vegas, Nevada. Why
interesting.
Las Vegas and why dog training is
Yeah.
a much more in-depth conversation, but you can find all the stories online if you're curious. But it had to do with an entrepreneur by the name of Tony Hsieh, who was the CEO of Zappos at the time, who invited me to be part of a development in downtown Las Vegas. I came up with an idea. His investment company invested in the idea. And so I found myself in Las Vegas, Nevada, opening a dog training facility. And what was curious about that was, in the process of working with dogs, really as a full-time thing, I mean, spending more time with dogs than I was spending with humans, what I was finding was that communication, and we know this already, but like to forget, and
Mhm.
we know this already, but we like to forget, and is that communication supersedes language. I mean,
Mm,
in terms of words, in terms of like the things, the formations of sound that fall out of our pie holes, right? That is actually the icing on the cake of communication. It isn't communication.
right.
Communication is
Decoration.
present.
Yeah.
It's connection, it's presence, it's body language, it's eye contact, it's facial expression, it's general demeanor. Um, it's all of those things.
The
And
energy.
yeah, well, you can remove language, from the point being that you can remove words from the equation and actually communicate really well.
Yeah.
And we are in a world that is saturated with so much noise that we forget, myself included, we forget that the magic is in the pause, because that's where the connection gets to happen. And so it pulled me back around to this fascination of how do we really fundamentally, how do I fundamentally take the superpowers that I have and utilize them in a way that can actually leave the world a better place than I found it. Because up until the time I started working with dogs, I would say that I was part of one of the wheels in the machine that was grinding across our planet in a way that was not healthy in any way, shape, or form, other than the profit motivations of greedy people.
Yeah.
All of the social media platforms, the entirety of Silicon Valley, while technologies got started with good intention, greed and profit motive, and really took the forefront. We started celebrating people who behaved in socially unacceptable ways. And by unacceptable, I mean ego-centered, cruel, self-serving, and they were celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
They were held up as icons. They were held up as examples of who we wanted to try to be,
Yeah.
despite the fact that they represented everything that we shouldn't be as a humanity.
Yeah.
And there was no consequence.
Got flipped.
Yeah, well, and we're animals. We're animals at our core. So the way a sentient being learns is boundary and consequence. And I don't mean like punishment and torture or anything like that, but if I put my finger in an electric socket, or I put a fork in an electric socket, and there wasn't some mechanism that showed me discomfort, I would do it again. If when I put my hand on a hot stove, my body didn't react in a way that said, get your hand off there or else, really bad things would happen to me. Now, obviously, I'm making very broad examples here, but when we look at social friction, when we look at relationship breakdown, when we look at the politicization of, oh, I don't know, everything, like, oh, you like almond milk and I like oat milk, therefore I hate you. I mean, it's when we look at the way that we've created these weaponized, the weaponization of tribalism, when we look at that and we see what's really at its core, I'll take a line from the movie Cool Hand Luke. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Of course, removing the context in which that quote was made, which was really an awful context because Paul Newman had just essentially had the shit kicked out of him, so the context of the quote is awful, but the quote definitely carries weight. So that's really, my mission, my vision, my purpose, what I'm here to do on this planet is to leave it better than I found it by working with individuals so that they can see and be seen, hear and be heard, and connect with other people in a way that matters. And I do that through a multitude of ways. I am a coach, is kind of one arrow in the quiver. I do private one-on-one coaching. I do small group coaching. It's kind of one piece of the puzzle. I'm a co-founder and CEO of North America for a Parisian-based startup called OpenBubble. It's a new app. We haven't kind of formally launched big yet. We've been in kind of like soft launch beta for a little while. And the premise of the app is creating the possibility for two complete strangers to meet for a cup of coffee in person and have a conversation that has no agenda. So it's not a dating app. It's not a networking app. It's not a business app. It's not I like truffles and you like truffles, so we're going to sit and talk about truffles. It's literally like I'm sitting in a coffee shop and maybe the friend I was going to meet canceled, like as I was walking into the coffee shop. So instead of sitting in the coffee shop staring at my phone, I'd really like to talk to someone. But most people are too afraid to do that. So again, it's about conversation and connection. And the third is I work with humans and their dogs. Mostly I'll never give up being a dog educator because it's just really gratifying and it's fun, and I get to play with puppies all the time. But it really it's essentially a different way for people to access my coaching services. So people who love dogs but don't have one don't use me for that, but people who love dogs and have dogs but also want some coaching can access that. So
That's cool.
I've got a podcast called Talk Unleashed,
Oh, fun.
which is mostly me kind of, I pick a topic that I just kind of decide that I'm going to tear apart and tell you what I think about it.
I love
And
that.
then, and occasionally I have somebody there where we tear something apart together, but most of the time it's just me talking.
I
So,
love that.
so that's me in a very big nutshell. Philadelphia born and bred, lived on the West Coast for the majority of my life, presently perched for a working sabbatical in the mountains of Central Virginia.
Fun. I love all the words that you choose. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Words are like candy. You never have enough of it.
Right. Well, and when you were talking about like words in general and thinking like, yeah, they're the decoration, I saw them as like flowers, just like flowers in a salad, just like sprinkle them around a little. They're cute. They're fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I love the salad metaphor because I'm one of those people that when I make a salad, there's like 15 things in the salad.
Mm-hmm. That's how salad.
There's like 3 different kinds of greens.
Yeah.
And there might be cucumber and maybe 2 kinds of cucumber. And there's tomato and there's avocado and there's not usually nuts or
Yeah.
seeds of some sort and
Flower seeds all day, every day.
greens, like whatever. Like it's usually in a bowl like the size of my head.
Yeah, it can't be anything
But
less.
not there. It's like my feed bag, like my feed bag. I just like strap it on like a pony and go to town. Please do not take that quote out of context because that would
No.
not right under many contexts that would sound absolutely inappropriate. So
That's fair. Well, and how I roll with this podcast is like, this is it.
awesome.
If there's like a long pause, I'll take that out sometimes. And that's usually my bad because like I'll need to readjust. But yeah, otherwise, I feel like this podcast is very much also in the same vein as the app that it sounds like you're creating. Like, I just want to hang out with people. People are cool. Like people are cool.
Right. And how different, I mean, society would have us believe. And when I say society and kind of I don't mean the population itself. I mean, and I'm also not suggesting like there's a secret cabal that is somehow conspiring to destroy us. I mean, there are people who believe that's true.
Clarity.
I mean, I think it's people being people and humans being the animals that we are. And when animals operate from fear, nothing good really comes from it. They kind of behave in ways that creates more friction. So the trick when you encounter an animal who is in fear is to not be in fear yourself.
Yeah.
And, if I'm not in fear, the chances that I can diffuse the fear that I'm facing is a greater than 50% margin most of the time, like vast majority of the time, 80. And I see that with a dog, like a dog that, very rarely is a dog that's coming after you with the malintent of hurting you. Like there's something at some point in that dog's behavior that it's being reactive to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my response to it will either diffuse it or fuel it. And I get to make that choice.
Yeah.
Same thing with people.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, because if people come up to me and they're all weird, then I'm like, oh, well, you're kind of weird. What's happening? Are you okay? Am I okay? Are we good?
Well, and what might happen if instead of that, when you feel that feeling rise, instead, kind of lean forward with curiosity of, wow, I'm having this reaction to this person. What's that about?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is this reminding me of? What am I afraid of? What do I think they might take from me? What do I think is going to happen to me because of that? And the answer, like most of the time is nothing.
Yeah.
And that the thing I'm reacting to is literally, I mean, there's a great book written by a remarkable transformational leadership coach by the name of Lisa Kelman. Powerhouse of a woman. She's been doing transformational leadership for, so in case some of your listeners don't know who this remarkable human is, she is powerhouse of a human being, a tiny little slip of a thing who fills a room with her energy and a heartbeat, and has been doing transformational leadership work for upwards of 30 years. And she wrote a book called The Problem is How You See the Problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's never about the thing in front of me.
No.
I want to make it about the thing in front of me because I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want to be wrong.
No, and it's so easy to not take accountability and then be like, oh well, you did it. And it's like,
Well, and then you just used a really interesting word, right? So to take accountability, that's implying that the accountability is outside of me. Right? If I am taking responsibility or I'm taking accountability, it implies that it is something other than me because I can't take something that I already am.
that's true.
So how do I get to be responsible? How do I get to be accountable? How do I get to be mindful? And when there's somebody who like steps on that nice raw nerve that I have, like, so there's a particular I don't want to say type of person. I would say there's a particular type of energy.
Maybe like an archetype.
To go like, no, not so much. I guess you could call it a bit of an archetype. I mean, sometimes it's energetic. Sometimes it's the way that energy manifests, because the same energy kind of percolate in a bunch of different ways with people. Like fear shows up in a lot of different ways, for example. Control shows up in a lot of different ways, for example. But there's a very certain kind of energetic imprint of controlling energy that is it's a bit off-putting to me. Mm-hmm. And historically, what's happened for me with it is I either shut down, I become unrecognizable to myself. Like I don't use my words, I get really quiet, I get kind of wounded and victimy. Like I don't even know who I am in that moment. Or I don't have much of a freeze, like on the fight, flight, or freeze or fawn spectrum. The fawn and freeze spectrum, not like those two. Like it's almost like like when people were lining up to get doled out the pieces of the four. Like I just skipped that table entirely and went fight or flight.
Not for me.
Yeah, and the flight is usually I'm going to run away for a minute so I can get a running start and come running back and knock you over. Like the fight is really my innate, but what's under the fight is fear.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing it because I'm afraid, and I'm afraid that it makes me small, or I'm afraid that it makes me wrong, or I'm afraid that I'm not enough. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm afraid that I'm wrong. Another really good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like for people who are listening who remember the TV show Happy Days back in the day, there was a character called Fonzie, played by Henry Winkler, who was this like leather jacket wearing kind of bad boy, right? And he like swaggered around and he was all tough. And there was this one episode where something happened and he was wrong. And he was admitting to someone and he was like, and I was like, he literally couldn't say the word. And it was like, I remember this episode so clearly. And I mean, I don't even know how old I was at the time. I was little, but admitting that I was wrong or that I am wrong. It's like, you can even hear where that goes in my chest. It's like, it just makes me feel all scrungy. So, cause I'm just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. I present as super self-assured, which is true most of the time. I present as smart and like all of these things. And a lot of the time that's true. And I'm also equally uncomfortable in my skin as anybody else. I want people to like me.
Yeah.
And I know because of the energy of my personality, there are going to be people who meet me who don't like me the minute they meet me. They're going to dislike me before I even open my mouth. The number of people who are close friends now who have told me, you know, when I first met you, I really didn't like you. And it's like, and I also get to know that. And so when I get a sense that there's someone who's being put off by me, to actually take a minute and be like, okay, Cathy, like, take a deep breath for a second, back up and give them some room.
Right. They need to take it in. It's just not everybody can drink from a fire hose.
Most people cannot. Most
No.
people cannot. So most people want to look at the spray from the fire hose from like across the street.
Yeah.
And they'll stand at the edge of the spray and be like, that's plenty for me. Right. And so,
I want
and
to
also,
address for
yeah,
audio listeners that I am laughing and crying. I am
yeah,
enjoying
yeah. I'm not
myself.
making her cry. I'm
Amazing.
not making her cry in a bad way. She's like, I literally think she's about to fall out of her chair.
Yeah.
So,
It's
just a little
perfect.
bit of love. Well,
Yeah.
and it's also, I mean, think about it though. You know, I also think about, you know, I was also the kid who was told that I talk too much and who
I have a lot to say though.
I had so much to say.
Yeah.
And I was told I talked too much. I was told I was weird. I was told there was something wrong with me. I was told that it wasn't ladylike behavior. I was told that I was too much. I was told all these things. And so I tried to be the quietest person in the room. Really, I tried. And then when I opened my mouth, it came out really badly,
Yeah.
you know, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't connect with other people. And I spent a lot of my life desperately lonely,
Yeah.
surrounded by people, and like feeling like if I disappeared, nobody would miss me and that nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
When I say most of my life, I mean till like 5 years ago,
Yeah.
you know, and I've been around the planet, you know, I'm about to, you know, mark my 55th turn around the sun.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And to have spent the vast majority of that time feeling like I didn't deserve to be here was awful. Now, the good news is that, you know, I had the opportunity to find work to go through it and a community of people to support me.
I love
And
that when
yeah,
you leaned back and you said the good news, I could then see your shirt again that said, I like dogs. And this whole time, I've just been envisioning like you as like a wolf on a chain, like just trying to like be, like a puppy. But it's like,
right. Well, and I don't know if you can see what it says underneath I like dogs. It says, and some people.
yeah, it was just perfect. When you leaned back, it was like, okay, all right, yeah. That's what happens.
As it turns out. As it turns out.
I love that. Yeah, it's a journey of, you know, being a wolf is till you find your pack is a lot. A lot.
Well, you can't be a wolf without one. They
Yeah.
don't exist. A lone wolf actually doesn't exist in nature. It literally doesn't exist. It's an urban legend. If a wolf is alone, it means it's sick,
Oh, oh.
usually dying.
Yeah.
So the lone wolf,
Huh.
because we're not designed to be alone either.
Mm-mm.
We're designed to be in a group. We're designed to be with other people, to be seen,
Yeah.
to be heard, to
Yeah.
be valued, to matter. And everyone matters. Every person who breathes on this planet, and I do mean all of them,
Yeah.
deserve to be breathing the air that they breathe.
Yeah, it's what is the like it's one of my favorite statistics about just being born. There's like a one in like a lot. It's a big number. A thing about me is if I tell you a number, I'm lying on accident, purpose. It just always is not the right number.
But it's a lot.
But
I
yeah,
remember that it's a lot. I don't remember how many.
it's a lot.
Got it. Okay. Noted.
Yeah, but like the chance of even being born is like mind blowing. So like
Yeah. Like the fact that we actually made it. And then you think about people. So like for example, so it was the summer of 67, like Augusty, late midsummer of 67, and my mom didn't feel well. Okay. So she went to the doctor. She thought she had the flu and she couldn't shake it. She was nauseous. She was tired all the time. She was dizzy. Like she wasn't sleeping well. Like she just felt awful. Yeah. And she tried to take allergy stuff thinking it was allergies, and that didn't work. And she tried to stay in bed and that didn't work. So she went to the doctor and she goes back, they do the blood work, and he goes back to the doctor and he said, Doris, you're not sick. She said, well, I know that something's wrong because I'm not right. I don't feel well. He said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're pregnant.
Whoa.
And she was like, I can't be pregnant. And he just started laughing. He's like, you've got 2 other kids. What do you mean? Like, you can't be pregnant? Or you didn't think you were pregnant? And she started laughing, and about 7.5 months later, and she was like a month or so along, and I guess it just it hadn't occurred to her that she had missed her period. I guess it hadn't occurred to her, and
life gets busy,
and then in May of 68 along came Cathy, a third kid. They had 2 other kids that they had planned.
Yeah.
Right. Those were the intentional ones. And they, thank God. Oh, good. It means my parents liked each other and we're having sex just to have sex. So that's good news.
That is good news.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was very good news. And I got to tell you, in 1968, 35-year-old women didn't have babies.
Oh.
By 35, you were done.
Interesting.
Right. By 1968, by 35 years old, your kids are 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah.
All of that. And so I've actually, my mother is still with us. She just turned 90 at the end of January. Sorry, Mom, for outing you, but 90 is a big number and it's amazing. Wow. And so what came from that is I asked her, I'm like, so how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant? Yeah. Were you scared? Were you pissed? Oh, fuck, not again. More swollen feet and not being able to see my feet, not being able to bend over, and morning sickness and not being able to fit in my clothes and my lower back hurting and going through labor again and diapers and you had a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. Were you upset? Were you angry? Were you scared? And she's like, well, the immediate reaction was surprise and a little bit of fear. But she's like, I had resources, I have medical care and a husband who loved me and a safe home and all of the things that I needed, and a circle of friends and family around me. So I had, support. I had no reason to be worried or scared about my well-being. I was just take care of myself so that I have a healthy baby. That's, same. I had already done it twice before. It's not like I didn't know what I was getting myself into. By the time you arrived 9 months later, you weren't a surprise anymore, because I had 9 months to know about it. You were coming. So it's not like you were a surprise. The pregnancy was a surprise. The baby, not a surprise.
Right.
And, but I grew up thinking that I was a mistake that my parents didn't want.
Interesting.
Even though, because I knew that they didn't plan me. So the story I told myself was that I was a mistake.
Interesting.
And that narrative drove me for decades to be high achieving.
Yeah.
To do better, to justify my existence.
Yeah.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it for a second.
Right. Yeah.
So you get to, but I got to unpack that and be like, oh, yeah, it's like my soul was just so determined to get here. It was like, okay, they're having sex. They're not planning on having a baby, but go. I got work to do.
Yeah. And you're elbowing your way down. You're like,
I'm shoving my way through the line. I actually visualized that I probably did. I was probably like, oh, look, there. Hey, guy, everybody, what's that over there? And while everybody was turned the other way, I ran to the front of the line and dove into the channel, or however souls do that. So
that's so funny.
I had work to do. Yeah. It took me another 50 years to get my head out of my ass and start, doing it in a way that felt substantive to me. But everything I've done leading up to now has positioned me perfectly for precisely what I'm doing now. So it's all in the right order.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
think
but
I think we write it and then we come. That's how I think.
at some point, I noticed that we have 7 minutes and 33 seconds, 31 seconds left. So
Amazing.
I don't know if I just got a little timer clock at the
Yeah.
top. That's
Yeah, I love that. Okay,
better stop her, better show her a timer or she's just going to keep talking.
they do that for me too. It's like, thank you, Zoom friends, because who knows? Okay, well, I feel like we full circled it because we came back to then like a tribal thing. If there's any more, because you said we're weaponizing tribalism, and I love that. I love that. Can I title that? Can I title?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's not tribalism that's the problem.
No.
It's the weaponization of it that is.
Yeah, because we're meant to be in like there's no I like to think about, oh my God, wow, yeah, this episode is perfect. I love it. I've had an amazing time, first of all. So thank you for coming on the podcast. This is amazing. Right?
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yes, this is amazing. Also want to say I'm so grateful to myself for choosing 1991. Thank you, self. I didn't thank you to yourself for coming here earlier.
I was just turning the lights on so they'd be on when you got here. That's all.
Appreciate it. You know, the heat was already on. It wasn't like too
Oh my
cold.
God, you got here a year after I graduated college. I think I have boots that are older than you. I may actually have a pair of boots that's older than you.
I want to wear them one day.
I just
I want to put them on.
I will, the opportunity is open for you. They're actually quite comfortable. They're very well broken in. Even how many times they've been resold. It's crazy.
Oh, I love that. I love that we call that for shoes. Resold. They have
Right?
soles.
Cool.
Cool.
As it should be.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a thing in Vegas. What do you have like do people come and work with you? Are you like Caesar Milan?
I'm taller. Actually, I'm
Amazing.
quite a bit taller than he is. No,
Okay.
literally, I'm actually taller than he is. He's not a tall man.
You.
He's a very big presence, but he's like, I went to meet him and I was like, oh, I didn't say it out loud, but what almost came out of my mouth was, wow, I thought you were taller, but I didn't say it. No, he was delightful. I think I was towering over him and I was wearing heels. So I have a picture of me with him and it's awkward. It's an awkward photo. It's an awkward photo.
Using Milan is someone that would be awkward.
Yeah, no,
like,
I mean,
speaking.
am I like Caesar Milan? I mean, no, I'm like Cathy Brooks.
Yeah, you're Cathy Brooks, and I love that way more.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't a whole lot of women at the forefront on a scale like that. I mean, there are a lot of women in dog care, there are a lot of women in dog training, but there's Caesar Milan, and then most of the people who are big names who have apprenticed with him are men. A lot of them are men that I've met. There's one woman out of Southern California. Her name is Tamar Geller, and she's the loved dog. And she's like works with Oprah Winfrey, and she was a Mossad officer in the Israeli army who came to the US and became a dog trainer. I don't know randomly how that happened. She wasn't a canine officer in the Mossad. She was just but she has a very masculine, she's this beautiful blonde woman with a very masculine energy to her. So and I have been told like my energy has a very kind of masculine texture to it, because I've met men with a beautiful feminine, like the male dog trainers I know who are most successful have a beautiful feminine energy to them. Like, could they marry the two? So I just think sometimes that women historically, when they embody a masculine energy, that they do it in a way that a gendered man embodies the energy. And that ain't how it works, right? That feminine and masculine have nothing to do with genitalia.
Right.
They're energy based. Man, woman, those are kind of genital based, like presentations of masculine and feminine. And we have both in both. And it's how do we call each forward for as much of an integrated energy as we can. And for some things, a more prominent masculine energy is necessary. Like communication, sometimes a more forceful energy is necessary, and sometimes a softer energy is necessary. Not good, not bad, not right, not wrong, just paying attention.
Yeah, I feel we tend to like create the yin yang just
Mhm.
in our, even in conversations with people. It's like that's kind of what we're on about, you know?
Mhm. Sure. Absolutely, for sure. So for the coaching, for the human coaching work, I do a lot of it remotely where possible. I love working one-on-one directly with people. So unleashedleadershipllc.com is the place to go for that sort of thing. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Cathy Brooks, just my name, CathyBrooks. Easy peasy to find. That's where you can find me on LinkedIn. Like I'm kind of almost embarrassingly easy to find online. I don't particularly hide in the digital sphere.
No, as you shouldn't, like
Well, you shouldn't hide because they can find you anyway. It's not like hiding actually means that nobody knows who you are. It's just you can tell yourself they don't, but it's a load of horse shit. So
yeah. It's just then I feel what shifted for me was I decided that if I was hiding, then other people were controlling my narrative. And I was like, nah, I'm gonna tell my own story. So I'm out here.
boom,
Right, right.
mic drop
For
with
real.
the mic drop.
Will you email me over your handles and links? I'll paste them into the show notes.
I
Amazing.
absolutely will.
I love
Faux
that.
show.
We have a minute
And if
and
people are interested,
yeah.
I do these 30-minute, it's called the Speak and Be Heard strategy call.
Oh, fun.
It's a 30-minute free 30 minutes of time. So I'm happy to give you the link for that as well. People can get
Yeah,
hooked up if they're interested.
that's cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Send over anything you want to plug, anything you want in the show notes, send it to me and it'll be
And
there.
when the podcast is up, let me know and I will distribute it.
Love it. I'm so excited. I'll be editing for today after now, so I'm excited. I'm so
Fabulous.
grateful that you came on the podcast. This was so amazing. I
Thank
love
you
it.
so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. This was so fun. Happy Friday.
Friday.
Yeehaw.
Thank you for your time, Sam. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Cathy. I appreciate you.
Keep laughing.
Yes, as always. Always, always. See ya.